Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of June 22nd, 2022. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion.
Mr. Vice Chair, would it be helpful to take roll call?
Oh, yeah, I didn't say that under general business, so of course, I'm just trying to go by the schedule here. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start roll call. Vice Chair Howes,
I am apparently here,
Commissioner Butler,
or not all here.
Commissioner Dorden,
Here.
Commissioner Drury,
Here.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Here.
Commissioner Emanuel,
Here.
Commissioner Uli.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay, did we have any written public comment?
We did not receive any general written public comments.
Okay, so I will close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 8th, 2022.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
Are there any corrections or edits? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion for approval of the minutes. Did that? You're right. Okay. So, roll call vote.
Thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Emanuel,
Abstain.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent calendar of June 22nd, 2022.
Motion to approve the calendar.
Motion by Uli,
I'll second that.
second by Dorden.
Yes, I'll go through the items. Item A was for 1734 Anacapa Street. The project received positive comments and was continued indefinitely for project design approval, and there was an action for approval of the evaluation of the project against the Secretary of Interior standards. Item B was for 132 East De La Guerra Street. The item was continued 2 weeks with comments about replacement trees. Item C was for 1836 State Street. It was continued for 2 weeks with comments about replacement trees. And item D was for 1202 Diana Road, also known as 1165 East Coda Street. The action was for approval of the review after final approval request with comments. And the reviewers were Vice Chair House and Commissioner Emanuel.
Thank you. Any questions on the consent calendar items? Seeing none, we'll move on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Staff.
Mr. Vice Chair, would it be helpful to have a vote on that matter since there was a motion and a second?
That's a great idea.
Thank
Coffee
you.
before you came over.
I should have.
Thank
Okay,
you.
roll call vote, please.
I'll go ahead and start roll call vote. Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Just trying to.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Emanuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, staff, any announcements?
Yes, I have a couple announcements. First announcement is that Chair Grumbine will be absent for today's meeting. And I would also just wanted to give you guys a reminder about the South Coast Housing Workshop, which is happening today at the Santa Barbara Central Library's Faulkner Gallery from 4 to 6 p.m. And I believe Ms. Hernandez has an announcement as well.
I just wanted to, I know I sent you all an email, but our next meeting is when Paige and Turnbull will be here to present the African American Black Historic Context Statement. So you have 2 weeks to dive in, and this being the draft is when we'd really like to hear your most critical comments, because we have a couple months to incorporate them before we have to close out the grant, and we want to bring you back a final draft that really incorporates as many of your concerns as possible. So we'll post that on the members site as well once this meeting's done, and give you lots of time to review it because it's a thick document.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
And I know we don't have to vote on that. Okay,
Go ahead.
all right.
Mr. Vice Chair, just follow-up comment. It's excellent work. I've read through it once, and it's just fantastic, and I think it's going to benefit the city terrifically.
Great.
Ditto. I would second that comment. Excellent. It's long, but excellent.
Okay, moving on to subcommittee reports. Are there any subcommittee reports? Doesn't appear that there are, so we will move on to the first item on the agenda, and we're 9 minutes early, but do we have an applicant here for that? This is 326 West Ortega. Yeah, come on up. Give your name for the record, and then give us your presentation. Oh, no, you sit right here.
I'll be doing the presentation
Oh,
for
okay.
the designation.
So you'll be
Yeah.
able to answer questions. But here, why don't you give us your name first?
My name is Sean Nasri.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Commissioners. I'm just going to present the qualifications for the structure of merit designation that's before you this morning, or this afternoon. This building was constructed at least by 1890 in the Gothic Revival style, which is a very early Victorian style. It has been listed on the Historic Resources Inventory since 2013, and the owner has requested it be considered for structure of merit designation. And when it was listed in 2013, that was the result of a survey done by Aubrey Morley, and she found there was a whole potential historic district, and this would contribute to that district as well as be individually significant as a structure of merit. I did just find some bird's eye views of Santa Barbara where you can see the development of West Ortega where the arrow lines up, but I can't tell if they were drawing this house or another one. They aren't quite to scale, as there's like 8 houses on that block now, and there's only shows 2 right here, so it's hard to tell. But you can also see it. That block was being developed. Sort of, it was the edge of Santa Barbara at that time of West Ortega, and when they talk about the Gothic revival, especially in this wood style, they did say it was often used in more rural settings, and this at that time was pretty rural when you look at where it stood in the city. And it does definitely show up under its current configuration footprint in the 1892 Sanborn map, and in the 1931 it shows the little edge had been enclosed right here, but it also shows a reiteration of the porch, but most of these had porches traditionally on almost all the buildings from the 1800s through the early 1900s. So I think it might have had it reconstructed. The building itself retains integrity, but I just wanted to also reiterate the integrity of the block. These are some of the pictures of the neighbors and buildings across the street that show that the whole street gives you that feel of the late 1800s. This was a map of the district that was proposed. All the blue buildings would be contributing. So it reiterates that this really contributes to the streetscape. As you know, sometimes we only have one remaining building on a streetscape. So when we have a nice collection like this, it really gives you that sense of time and place. Individually, this building does meet criterion C, as it has distinctive characteristics of the Gothic Revival style. One of the most notable is the steep roof with the filigree ornament lining the ridge line. That I have the field guide to historic houses, and that's sort of classic Gothic Revival. And this style sort of predates actually the Queen Anne and the Italianate, which is why it might be in earlier than 1890, but I don't have any actual evidence. As you know, we don't have a lot of records from prior to 1900. And it also has one of the really distinctive ashlar-cut sandstone walls lining the streetscape. Here you can see it has 4 courses along with its neighbor that and it has sandstone steps that really define our streetscapes and make them very unique in Santa Barbara. So that's my quick presentation, and I do recommend that we adopt Resolution 2022.2, designating the building as a structure of merit.
Thank you very much. I will open this up to public comment. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak on this item? Sir? up to the podium, please. Please give your name for the record.
My name's Alfredo Gonzalez.
Is the microphone on for him? A little green light will come on when you press that button. Well, it needs to be recorded, so.
There you go.
There we
Okay.
go.
Yes, hi.
Thank you.
My name's Alfredo Gonzalez. I got one of these notices. I'm one of the neighbors of this proposed property. I was just wondering, this is the first that I've ever heard of it, this notice. What exactly will this impact? How will it impact the properties around it? Is there going to be like restrictions to further building? Can there be additions to this property? I just want to get a little bit more information about what you're doing.
Thank you. Our architectural historian is the person to answer those questions.
The designation itself will likely not impact the neighbors. This is just on this property. It will protect this property and make it, yes, very difficult to tear down and rebuild, but we review additions all the time, and the commission does, that are appropriate for historic buildings. Typically, it benefits the neighborhood because it offers stability in your neighborhood that people like to know their neighbor isn't going to tear down. You're going to end up with an apartment building as your neighbor. And that usually improves property taxes and property values in historic districts and studies nationwide. So it's usually a benefit. I know I've worked with this owner and he's doing restoration plans, so improving his property to keep its original
With the
configuration.
improvements, is that going to include additional units or additional square footage?
At this time, it's just restoring the main house.
Okay, yeah. Because one comment that I would like to make to everybody is that this particular block is probably one of the most impacted blocks in the whole city. There's usually no place to park, and everybody's fighting for parking spaces. I think on Thursdays maybe, or Wednesdays, it's trash day, so everybody's moved over, and because this particular block has a lot of units and a lot of rental properties, just the parking is just really, really tight. So I just would like for you guys to know that and take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Lenvick.
I'd like to ask the staff, why is this before us today?
The owner's requesting structure of merit status up from inventory so he can qualify to apply for the Mills Act.
So the property owner is looking for a Mills Act action.
Later, they'll apply. You can't even apply unless you're a structure of merit.
So why is it here before us today?
It doesn't have the structure of merit status yet, and they can't apply until they get that.
So they intend to apply for Mills.
Yes, later. That's the second step.
Normally, we see these because a project is coming before us on that property or is part of a larger group of properties. So I'm just wondering why we have two on the agenda today, which are out of the normal sequence.
Well, so they can't even apply for that Mills Act contract until they get this. So this is the first step, and then they'll come in with the Mills Act. The second
So this would be a
step.
third reason why it would come to
Sure.
this board.
I think that the neighbor's concern probably hasn't been addressed in your comments. And what I see here is that the property owner is looking for some tax advantages associated with remodeling that property. And you get that through a state approved grant process. So we aren't seeing a project today, but we're not going to see a project unless it's designated a structure of merit. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
And Vice Chair House, we are technically still doing public comment, so if we could round back to that.
Okay.
And also.
Was there any
that we-
written comment submitted?
Thank you. We did not receive any written public
Okay.
comment.
Seeing no others
Chair-
for
Vice
public.
Chair House, we also have remote public comment, possibly
Ah.
by folks watching
Okay.
online.
Thank you. We did not receive any remote public comments.
Okay, now I will close public comment. So I will move on to questions from the commission. Any other questions? Doesn't appear.
no question.
Okay.
Neighbor.
Well, let's move into comments. And do you have any further comment?
No, I just hope that the neighbor can understand what is transpiring.
Is your mic on? There we go.
I can try and expand on a little bit. So we offer designated historic resources a property tax reduction for restoring the building. So it helps compensate for all the costs for that restoring.
Which is what the
Container.
Mills Act is she was referring to.
But you do have to be fully designated to qualify for that. This building, as well as several others in the neighborhood, have all been sitting on we call it the Historic Resources Inventory, where it comes in front of this board and we look to protect the building anyway, but they don't get the full benefit of the tax reduction unless they are fully designated. So lots of owners will come and request to be elevated up so they can receive those benefits since they're maintaining their historic home anyway. And the designation definitely is there to protect that resource and the neighborhood, really.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Mills Act is directed towards assuring that the house does improvements that further the restoration or the preservation of the building. It's not to enable them to add another story or to turn it into apartments or anything like that. So it's for the preservation.
Yes, and in fact, if they added something in the rear, it would be taken out of that Mills Act and taken to full value. You don't get restoration credits for building a new apartment in the rear or something like that. So the benefit's really for properties that have that historic building, and the focus is on that historic building.
Okay, any other comments? So let's see, what we need to do is a motion for a resolution of designation. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, who would like to make that motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move for a resolution to designate as a structure of merit 326 West Ortega Street, APN 037-073-016. This is Resolution 2022-2.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Lenvik and a second by Uli, was that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start the roll call vote. Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, you skipped is there any discussion on the motion bit? So I'll give a little bit here.
Thank you.
And hope the minutes include it. Typically, the designation subcommittee would see a recommendation for structure of merit in combination of a Mills Act request. Typically, they go along together. And sometimes our process is that there would be a designation item on the agenda and the Mills Act that follows it. So it seems it's slightly out of sequence, but this is just advancing that Mills Act request.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for any and all help in sharing this meeting.
Can I-
And
can I
Mr.
just-
Chair, I really think it would be beneficial that the designation committee do review these before they come before the commission. You're welcome.
Thank you. I just have two comments on both those processes. This one, often we bring things that have been listing on the potential or the historic resources inventory straight to the commission, and things that are coming in brand new that no one's ever seen to the designation subcommittee. And we started separating the designation from the Mills Act last year because I was having to designate 10 buildings and process the Mills Act at the same time. And they really need to qualify first and then apply. And when we had fewer applications, it was pretty easy, but it started to get overwhelming. People weren't qualifying and applying. So we were trying to figure out how to help the staff loads. But
And you are just one person. I mean, it's not like you have an army.
I know, but I
Helping
want
you.
one.
Okay, we'll move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is a new item.
Vice Chair House, pardon the interruption, if you could just announce the 10-day appeal period
Okay,
of this approval.
That prior item 326 West Ortega Street, there's a 10-day period to appeal that to the city council. Okay, so item 2 is a new item, Historic Structures Report for 236 East Cabrillo Boulevard. The project site is located within the El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District and the state-designated East Cabrillo Boulevard Parkway District, Historic District. This is a request for acceptance of a Phase 1 Historic Structures Sites report prepared by Rincon Consultants. The report concluded that the Laguna Pump Station facility is not a historical resource under CEQA or the city MEA guidelines, and that therefore the implementation of the proposed project would have a less than significant impact to historical resources. So, who is going to present for this? Come on up and give your name for the record, please.
Taylor Berryman, project engineer with the city of Santa Barbara.
Thank you.
And I'm joined, I see we only have one chair up here, but joined by James, who's the historian.
Do you want them to sit?
I think so, yeah, James.
And I don't think your microphone is on. Press the button, so, yeah, there we go.
You want me to say it again?
Should he say that again? I mean,
Okay.
well, that's,
Taylor Berryman, project engineer at the city of Santa Barbara. I'm joined by
okay.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I did just want to explain why this structure report is in front of you. Sometimes applicants have to do these for federal and state guidelines,
Okay.
and that's why this is coming before you today.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. So this is a project that's funded by FEMA. So under that federal NEPA process, we're before you with the report, and the project itself has several components, most of them being mechanical in nature. The actual meat of the facilities being upgraded. We're taking the gas drives that powered this pump station's pumps, swapping those out for electric motors, adding a diesel generator, those sort of interior, more mechanical upgrades to the facility. We will be doing some point repairs on some of the cracking walls, but largely the structure itself will stay intact. The report itself goes into great detail as to the history of the site, and James knows a lot more about that than myself, but I do know that the arts building that's on Cabrillo was once the actual pump station, and somewhere about 7 to 10 years after that, it relocated and went to the structure you see on the slide in front of you. CMU wall building. So that's the facility as it is. The footprint's not increasing or anything. We'll be doing some revetment within the channel. That's just adding more grout to the area where the burrowing ground squirrels have caused a maintenance problem. Removing vegetation, removing some of the silt from the invert of the channel, having all that work properly permitted through the jurisdictional agencies. And I'm really here if any more technical questions pop up on the engineering and what the project scope is, but the bulk of this meeting is with the report and the actual historical findings that James will give a little bit of a detail on.
Okay, well, some of this is covered. Excuse me, I should say good afternoon. Some of this is already covered, but I just in summary, what I want to, oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
Lights on, yeah, you're on.
yeah, okay, it's on. So In 2020, Rincon Consultants prepared an assessment of the proposed project's potential to impact historical resources. This effort included a significance evaluation of all built environment resources in the project footprint, an assessment of the project's potential to impact the East Cabrillo Boulevard Parkway Historic District and the El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District, within both of which the project is located. Recon revised the report in June 2022 to reflect changes to the city's significance criteria. So Rincon identified one potential built environment resource in the project footprint. This is the Laguna Pump Station facility. It consists of a water conveyance channel improved by the WPA in 1939, and then subsequently altered to include the existing pump station, which was constructed between 1959 and 1962, ocean tide gates, or rather I should say existing ocean tide gates, constructed between 1953 and 1958, and the existing channel extension constructed circa 1959. The assessment recommended that the property is ineligible for listing in the National Register, California Register, and locally due to a lack of historical, architectural, and engineering significance. The assessment also concluded the project would not result in substantial changes to the East Cabrillo Boulevard Parkway Historic District or the El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District, because the facility is not a contributor and the proposed work would be consistent in materials, function, and scale with the existing pump facility. And so, as a result of the assessment, Rincon concluded that the project would not have direct or indirect impacts to any eligible or designated historical resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any additional presentation to make?
No.
Okay.
I'm Beth Anna Cornett. I'm a senior planner with Public Works, and I'm working on this project for all the environmental compliance with Army Corps, CDFW, and CCC, Coastal Commission, and the City of Santa Barbara. Just so you know, we're getting all the appropriate permits, as Taylor mentioned.
Okay.
And Vice Chair House, if I could interrupt, I just want to clarify that the design review aspects of this project will be reviewed by staff administratively, but acceptance of this report is required of this board for the CEQA exemption. So that's what is before you today.
Yes. Okay, thank you. If you're finished with your presentation, then I'll open this up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this item? If so, please fill out a speaker slip. Does not appear that anybody wishes to speak on it. Is there written public comment or online?
Thank you. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item, and there are no attendees in the webinar.
Okay, thank you. So I'll close public comment, open it to questions from the commission.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drury?
so I'm assuming from what I've heard that there's going to be no change to the skin of the building as it exists. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Question. So I'm very familiar with it, strangely enough. I run this route about 3 or 4 times a week. So the intent is to clean up. The ground squirrels and I are old friends. So I can appreciate the intent there. But my question was, the structural changes, external, et cetera, the answer was no. And that's beyond that. I mean, you talk about you're going to clean out the slough a little. What else is there considered for other visible changes to it? Is that kind of the extent of it?
Yes. The very top of the diesel generator that's going on is the backup, is the last visible element that I didn't list.
There will be the electrical there will be an electrical
yeah.
panel as well.
External.
To the structure. It's going to be kind of like long and flat, right adjacent to the structure, kind of blending in with the structure, and painted the same color as the structure. So that's a new control panel. So we've done visual analysis from the parking lot, from the bike ped cross, at the
bridge.
beach, and they're very difficult to see. You see like slivers of these components. So And what we've decided to do is paint them appropriate colors so that they blend in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Any other questions? Commissioner Ludwig?
Yes. We are oftentimes concerned about the mounting of mechanical, electrical stuff on the exterior of a building. And I don't know why we would be any less concerned here, even though we supposedly can't see it. Will there be conduit strung across the face of the building?
Commissioner Lenvik, no, there will not. The panel it's floor mounted. It's on a pad. It's not wall mounted.
Okay. So it's freestanding from the building?
Correct. It abuts, the back of it abuts the building, but it's not attached.
I see. Is it smaller than the transformer that's located at parking lot 9, Paseo?
They should know that one for sure.
Square footage-wise,
that is a facetious comment, but it's also of concerning, because oftentimes we are surprised by what we see show up on the site, and it's like hearing that there is a diesel generator located inside the building. There must be combustion air, fresh air supplied to it.
Yeah, it's an open air building.
There's no roof on the building.
Correct.
Oh, really?
There's a cover over the existing pumps on the channel side, the first 12 feet, and the non-channel side, the south end, is open air.
I see. That's interesting.
Yeah, in the aerial, you can see where the roof extents are.
Yeah.
Are there any further questions or are there comments?
Well, I would say that it would have been instructed to have these shown to us right off the bat.
Well, we had access to this report, but do you mean if we had a plan view or something?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is-
Let's see, these keys, 1, 2, 3, 4, what do those refer to? I mean, we know 1 is the building, but 2, 3, and 4, okay, so down here in the corner. So, those are the tide gate, the creek channel, and the concrete channel and outlet. But perhaps you could use the cursor to show where the electrical would go. And Cabrillo is, so you're
The cursor shows where the electrical panel will go. It's on that
So it's between those
east.
two buildings, so that other building kind of screens view of it from Cabrillo.
Precisely.
And the overall height of it?
It's shorter than the building. I believe it's 7 feet. I would have to get back to you on for sure on the height of it. I know it's shorter than the building.
And Vice Chair House, just to interrupt again, staff will review this project for design at an administrative level. So we're looking for you to make comments on the report as far as the historic significance of the structure.
Yeah, I understand, but obviously there are concerns and questions, so having a plan view or something like that would have been helpful so that we know that it's not an issue.
Mr. Chair, I do have one question concerning the diesel. Are you concerned about noise?
The diesel backup engine we've coordinated with the adjacent property uses is the decibels is quieter than the road when vehicles are passing, and it'll be used very infrequently. It's in purposes of the pump station. Like we have an electrical outage, the diesel generators will kick on, so there will be much bigger problems than ambient noise when
Yeah.
those do
Yeah,
drive.
for all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion for,
Mr. Vice Chair, I'll make a motion that to accept the HSSR. It adequately states the project impacts and resource quality.
I'll second that.
okay, motion by Uli, second by Jordan. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
We're continuing ahead of schedule, so that's a good thing. Yeah. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 3. 524 Chapala Street is here for a final approval. The project site is located in the El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District. Proposal for a 323 square foot addition to an existing single-story commercial building. Project includes renovation of the existing Chapala Street facade and landscape and hardscape improvements to the parking lot. Project plans must demonstrate substantial conformance to the plans that received project design approval on April 13th of this year. You should know that. But I am actually confused about that, staff, because I looked at the minutes and it said I left at 3-something, and then the meeting was adjourned at 4-something, and my recollection is I left, but it doesn't show that I had left on the motion.
We didn't want anybody to know.
Yeah, exactly. Jan, do you recall if I was here for the last review? I think I left.
Steve, I did not see you at all that day unless you were in the Scots.
Okay,
Anthony shared this meeting.
yeah, okay.
So we can review the meeting again and update the minutes as necessary.
Okay,
But if you
that'd
would
be
like to
fine.
read the previous motion into
But I
the
did not
record.
watch the video, so I will not comment or vote. All right, so, would you like to make your presentation?
Vice Chair House, before
Mr.
we
Chair, could
start.
we have the prior motion read into the record for our benefit?
Yes, and in fact, there are the comments right there. So as a project design approval with comments, the commission prefers the pots on the landscaping plan to not be square, but rather more El Pueblo Viejo consistent and preferably round. The lighting, wall wash, and other details shall be continued for review at final approval. In general, the lighting plan looks good and is supportable. The commission appreciates the additional design and adjustments made to the kitchen entry and wall. They look proportionally acceptable and the wall articulation is acceptable. The tile and openings are a step in the right direction. The commission appreciates the color choice and reasoning behind it, but they need to be integrated in more EPV Spanish way. The commission appreciates the additional studies done on the main entry design and canopy. However, this element is still in need of more refinement. Its complexity in combining the columns, arch, tile work, and metal awning needs to be resolved in a better way. The applicant shall provide additional study and options. This proposal is acceptable for initial project design approval with more refinement needed at final approval review. One commissioner would like to see more wall profile adjustments for the mission gable parapet wall. All commissioners feel that the general size is acceptable with small molding above the mission gable and with larger molding above the flanking walls. Regarding the glass doors and window muntins, one commissioner would like to see more horizontal muntins with at least 2 more horizontal muntins for both sets of doors and skylights. The other commissioners find the drawings acceptable as proposed. The project compatibility analysis findings generally have been met. And the motion was made by Uli, second by Butler, 6-0-0, and Jordan and Drury, and I believe House were absent. The motion carried. So, now it's time for your presentation.
Okay, I'd like to say, should I turn this on?
Oh, yes, I'll make sure you have your mics on. Little green light will come on.
Okay, thank you. So, good afternoon to commissioners. We're excited to be here and finally get final approval. We responded to our last review and have submitted full sets of drawings with all disciplines, landscape, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We've got a roof plan showing all mechanical equipment, screening as required. We've responded to the 2 significant comments. We've refined our tile banding, which the commission generally found acceptable. And you can see the sample here where we incorporated some tile detail in the banding. We've satisfied ourselves. We met with the board, not your board, but the JCC board to go over it. Looked at local examples very proximal to this project, completely all within El Pueblo Viejo. We feel that this is acceptable. We hope you concur. If we can go to drawings A9-3, we can show you the refinements made to the, well, before we do that, I think it'd be wise that we go to the supplemental drawing that's in the set.
It's up there under the tab, it says supplemental.
Okay, so the commission had requested we look at some alternatives and evaluate what we were proposing. And so, yeah, that supplemental tab.
Is that, okay.
Yeah, so we looked
Got
at
it.
variations
Thank you.
where the proposed awning interfaced the arch column interface. And we explored raising the columns through the arch with a shorter span and spring line of the arch versus just the opposite, where we lowered the arch and had shorter columns. And after a lot of discussion and evaluating local and historical resources, we decided to refine the interface of the canopy at the capital of the column. So what we did, if we can go to page A93,
Flipped it back, there it is.
yeah, so you can see on the lower right there, detail 1, that the grayed out area is the actual column capital. It was thickened to meet and interface nicely with the support of the canopy. So the spacing around the capital is maintained uniform around there, so it is very tailored. And again, we studied a lot of examples. We feel this meets refinements in excess of a lot of the canopies that occur not only in the community but elsewhere in the world. So you can see some views that now if you go to A92, you can see clearly how the tile was designed to return into the opening. We actually have V-cap tile at the edge of the tile opening, that the thickness of the canopy again is meeting and interfacing with the capital, and that separation distance is maintained, so it's a very tailored, refined situation. And I think we've got all the details throughout the set that address that. I might point out on our color board here that the underside of that canopy, the canopy is represented in terms of the material board right here. In terms of the coloration, it's a very, very dark olive, almost black green. The plates on the underside, if you go back to A93,
That's in the plans.
No, one more tab over to the left. Yeah.
Now we're at
If you
2. we
scroll
wanna
down
go to
there.
3, right?
yeah, you can see, so the panels between the ribs of the underside are the dark steel, but the ribs themselves are the lighter shade in here. And the dark panel overlays. Now, if we go to the detail, I think it's on A9 too, if I'm not mistaken.
Does it show the
Yeah,
panel
well-
in the middle there?
Do you see that there? If you look at this detail here on our material board, these represent the 2 colors, where the darker olive, black, green is the panel floating in front of the bronze plate in front. So those are water jet cut patterns with this bronze brass element behind. And then the lighter color, of course, is, as I described, the ribs, which you see on the other board that somebody's got there. Yeah. And then, while we're there, you can see the plaster body color, the trim colors. We've added all the elements. We've got detail specs for the board if they're interested. Cut sheets for all the lighting fixtures. They're very consistent. We did change out the little walkway bollard. The one we had originally at the last presentation was somewhat Oriental Asian in its styling. And we like the simplicity of this same bronze, weathered bronze, very de minimis bollard there. And we maintain the pavers. We've got sample of the pavers here. The colors are very complementary. We did change out all the pots, and we're ready to move forward with this final approval. So,
Does that conclude your presentation?
yeah, I think so.
Okay. Then I will open this to public comment. And I don't see anybody in the room. Is there any written comment or Zoom comment?
Thank you. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item, and we do not have any attendees in the webinar.
Okay, thank you. I will close public.
Mr. Chair? So my understanding is that all of Matrix is, behind it is this brass.
Well, there's two panels here. One is, the brass panel is back behind.
Right, that's what I mean, yeah, this
Right.
is overlay.
So when you look through, you see the brass,
I see.
the bronze, I
I
would say.
can't comment, but I think that's very striking, thank you.
And so the lighter or the darker panel that, yes, that is, that's punched, it's
Water jet cut.
water jet cut.
And these two colors are represented on that sample board.
Yeah.
And the fascia is the darker color as well, because the signage that we kept inside the flanges of the channel is set against these letters. The Shalom is set against the darker color.
And you think that the contrasted color there of the two grays is sufficient?
It's subtle.
It's really subtle.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, the problem is, of course, that it's on the underside, so it's all dark to begin with.
Right.
There's no chance for light to get up there and differentiate the colors. Look at this.
No, I can see the bottom, I mean, there's reflected light anyway.
Yeah, that was going to be my point, that there is reflected light.
Right.
Too close up.
I don't know, to me, it's real close color-wise, and I like what you're doing. I just want to make sure that it works out.
We
Yeah.
can post somebody underneath with a flashlight.
There you go. Do that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think, based on the experience and the commentary that board members have made in the past, was to kind of, try to simplify things. So hence the union between the canopy and the square capital, the simple banding of the tile work.
That's the difference. This is cool. Yeah. This is the water cut panel. That's
the other one. That's
The water cut panel is dark.
Right.
Yeah, and purposely
yeah.
so that you get that contrast.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with.
I have to say that we went to trouble to really study issues around town and feel confident that we were really fitting into the parameters that your board is interested in pursuing. So we always looked at our examples both locally, because you'd always get on some board somewhere, though, that's not local. So we did the local, and then we did the international to really kind of tie it together. And Steve, I know you've traveled to Andalusia, and you draw on those influences a lot, so we tried to really
Flattery
thread
will
that
get
into
you.
Well, I'm not trying to flatter you, believe me. I'm just saying that you've drawn upon that in your expressions before, so. But if you want me to flatter you.
No.
Not in front of these guys. I'll be embarrassed. Yeah. Okay, so any other comments?
I did have a question. There's two pavers here. Are those the same pavers?
Yes, they are. So
Okay.
it's a model paver. It's called Sahara Sand, and we deliberately chose one that was sympathetic to the, by the way, I did bring actual color samples that I think are.
That's the actual paving plaza, for that
Okay.
one. Then
Yeah, these are
the
the-
lighter one, this color is for the actual walkway, entrance, kind of apron, we'll call it.
Okay, and that's in that bag, or that little
Yeah.
sleeve?
Yeah, that's the color of the trim and the wainscot.
Let me get
And
back to
modeling
this
is
one.
good because it'll help hide staining and things like that.
This one is kind of the apron at the street level of the walkway, and then this one also happens in front of the main entry to the building.
Okay.
But this is the main running bond pattern that'll be throughout the whole patio or plaza or parking area.
Okay.
Ed, you can see a better contrast there.
Yeah.
So one more question, if I may. How far out does that, what do you call it?
The awning?
Awning, canopy?
A93, please. We'll show it.
A9?
plainly.
Yep, here we go. I went too far on this one, hang on.
Yeah.
Dismissed it, excuse me. One back.
There you go on the left. It's dimensioned, and you can see the relationship. And the next page as well, A93, will be pretty clear. There you go.
So how far, at the apex
From
of
the
that
from the furthest point inside out is about 6 feet. So you got a
Were you
2-foot
asking about
recess.
height above the ground? or
No,
the-
no, no.
Cantilever height?
And then if you go to the sections on A4, you'll get also a very clear depiction of that.
You're gonna get, the color that you've chosen for the, I'm not making a comment, by the way. The color that you've chosen for that,
Nobody can hear you, though, because your microphone's not on.
I'll make a question at the end of it, is gonna have reflected light right up into that surface. It's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah, we're excited about it.
Thank you.
There's the section now, finally, sorry.
A43. Actually, Sam, A43 is like got a little bit more
4.3
clarity.
is a little more section. Okay.
Yeah. There it is on the left.
Any additional comments?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, I simply want to state for the record that although I was not here for the April 13th meeting, I did review that meeting.
Thank you very much.
Comments here?
Yes.
I'm wondering out loud, thinking out loud, that the pot at the two pots at the entry aren't big enough. That's just a question for the designer.
I would like to answer that. So they're actually quite tall. They're slender
I've seen that,
deliberately, and they're like 52 inches tall. So we think that that's a good height relative to the 10-foot underside of the canopy, and that proportion is good. And just with what's going on, we really like the slender approach to it. And by the way, that's a variation from the pots that you had requested, the big round ones.
Right.
So the plaza pots are as big and round as we can get,
Okay.
as opposed to the slender ones.
So, and the plant materials in those entry ones?
Sam could answer that.
They're going to be more of a vertical sense of area and then a cascading sedum, something like a donkey tails that'll kind of soften and drape down slightly. So there's a vertical and a horizontal kind of blending of the two plants in that slender pot. And then the parking lot pot will actually have a small olive tree and the same kind of succulent sedum that will be traipsing over the edge. So I think they complement each other in the ground cover, but then they're different in the vertical plant mass that's going to be in each of those different pot areas.
I have a question. Are the tall, slender pots secured so they can't be vandalized and tipped over?
You're gonna have
I
to
think
be
they're going to be epoxy down, or they'll be
pinned and epoxy.
Yeah, okay.
Can you go to the view showing
Yeah, A93, or would you like an overall?
just an elevation of pots?
the elevation with. Oh yeah, that was 9.3 or 9.2, right? The one that had the shadowed elevation. or-
A92 and 3.
You know, you can use those up-down arrows right under that Plans tab to go from page to page.
Yeah, and those pots in that view
Thank you.
are not, that's probably more representative than the actual elevation view there, because they're taller. If you scroll down a little bit, Sam, you can see in that depiction there, those pots are too short. They would be another foot taller.
The ones you selected are a foot
Yeah,
taller.
are a foot taller than those.
We
That's
feel,
correct.
we feel like they fit in that little recess quite nicely. They're not coming out into the walkway space as far.
I've got the spec sheets, if you want to see them on the pots themselves.
No, I'm okay. I think that looks great, honestly.
Any other comments? All right, would somebody like to make a motion then for final approval and comment on this being in conformance with the preliminary design approval?
I'll make a motion for final approval with the comment that the project is, what was the phrase? Substantially conforming to the previous drawings.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion by Uli, second by Jordan. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start the roll call vote. Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Howes,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Gentlemen.
And can I clarify,
Stand up
Thank
and
you.
cheer.
Vice Chair House?
Thank you.
Vice Chair House, I don't believe Member Drury
Excuse
could
me.
vote.
Wait a minute, please.
I'm not sure, Member Drury, I don't think you were voting today.
Right, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's true. I should abstain as well.
Yes.
And-
Well,
and
unless
to
you
abstain.
reviewed the material,
What's that?
unless you reviewed the material from the last
No, I did
meeting.
not.
Okay,
I did
so,
not.
Well, it still clears the bar.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
And do I have to announce an appeal period for this? Okay, so there is a 10-day appeal period to city council. You got a lot of stuff to carry.
You have a nice presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I wish they were all like that.
Thank you. You gotta like it, otherwise it's crazy.
So we are ahead of schedule, so I suppose we should recess for about 10 minutes.
yes, we cannot start before 2:30, so however you, want to do 10 minutes or 5 minutes or
Let's make it 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Santa Barbara Street.
800?
Yeah, is it opening?
It is, and if you're interested in going and walking it, I'd be happy.
Not a vote, just a roll call.
Would you like her to sit? Because we can pull up another chair.
No, she's okay.
Okay. We're resuming the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting. And a roll call vote, did you say?
Just a roll call.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start the roll call. Vice Chair Howes,
I'm here.
Commissioner Butler,
Here.
Commissioner Jordan,
Here.
Commissioner Drury,
Here.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yeah. Here.
Commissioner Manuel,
Here.
Commissioner Uli.
Present.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Okay, this is item 4, 801 Alston Road is here for a concept review. This site contains a city structure of merit, the Gray Home Estate proposal to construct a 2,466 square foot detached accessory structure classified as a 6-car garage. The lower level will serve as a workshop space, replacement of approximately 5,400 square feet of existing impermeable pavers with new impermeable pavers, 924 square feet of landscaping, and grading approximately 670 cubic yards of cut and 35 cubic yards of fill. The project also proposes removal of a portion of a low site wall and construction of new site walls at the lower level mandor to accommodate construction of the garage. The site is developed with a 19,611 square foot residence. There are 2 parts to today's review. There's the Part A, concept review, and no appealable action will be taken at this hearing because it is a concept review. Project will require project compatibility findings in Hillside Design District and sloped lot findings for project design approval. Part B is requesting acceptance of a Phase 2 Historic Structures Sites report prepared by DUDEC. The report concluded that all proposed new construction and modification to the Gray Home property is in conformance with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, and therefore the proposed project's level of impact on historical resources will be less than significant, Class 3. So if I recall, Chair Grumbine typically takes Part B first, and then we table that and go to the concept review and then come back and approve the report. Is that right?
I think in the past that it has occurred that way, and it's at your discretion how you want to proceed. I think our logic in agendizing it in this order is that if you do feel positively towards the project, it would make sense to accept the report. However, if you don't, if you feel there are big design changes that are needed.
So from staff's point of view, do Part A first and then
Yeah,
Part B.
and if
What does
you're-
the commission feel?
It's your discretion.
I was trying to get your input.
My concern is that I know the last time we saw this, if I recollect properly, we were concerned that there was not enough compatibility in the new structure with the historic structure. And I assume that the Phase 2 report probably will clarify that. And so, rather than us exercising our imperfect judgment on compatibility, the historic structures report might be more valuable first.
Yeah. And how's the applicant feel? Do you agree with that?
We were prepared for that, so.
Okay, so please present the Historic Structures and Sites report first.
Fantastic. I'm Sarah Porter from DUDAC. I'm a lead architectural historian at DUDAC.
Got to turn your microphone on, and then make sure you speak into it.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Got it? Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you all so much for having us here today. We have been before you guys before with this design. As Commissioner Lindvik remembers, it was definitely a lot different the first time through, so we have reanalyzed a new design that is much more sympathetic and incorporates all of the feedback that we've received at the other 2 concept designs. So Our report has been prepared based on the new designs that Greg will be presenting from the architect today. And we agree fully that it's in conformance with the standards, and we believe that it will be something that you guys will be on board with today.
Okay.
So Greg Griffin from Shubin Donaldson Architects
Okay.
and Jessica Hall.
You might move it a little closer to you.
And Jessica Hall is also from our office. So Commissioner Lundvik, you recall seeing this way back in 2020. And shortly after that visit, the design team and ownership team chose to focus on site improvements and an interior remodel that was in progress at the time. So we pulled the garage out of that application. We're back today with the same garage, basically, under a new application. At that time in 2020, this was ready for project design approval. And today it's largely the same garage, no change in the detailing, basic massing, siding, all that stuff is going to look very familiar to some of you. So I thought if it is okay with the board, I would just focus in on the minutes from that 2020 meeting.
That's perfect. I was going to ask staff if they had the minutes they could put up, and I should probably read them. If I was not absent.
I believe because this is a new project, I don't have minutes from the previous.
You could borrow mine if you'd like.
Okay, I will read the applicant's minutes.
They are not doctored, I promise.
Okay, so is this one here? Okay. So it was continued indefinitely with comments. The commission feels that the design of the garage is a great improvement. The windows on the garage seem proportionally too large. I remember that comment. The garage doors on the south elevation are not resolved in the operability of their openings or the amount of plaster and wall surface above. Study the rafter tails as they seem to be too small. Study the roof pitch as a pitch break. It says break pitch, but it should be a pitch break. The commission is split on the roof pitch as proposed. The River of Life motif should be used on either the arched garage doors or the man door. The auto court design, specifically the lozenge-shaped grasscrete area, is not acceptable as submitted. The commission requires a new design. The plaster and steel windows are acceptable. Study an asymmetrical window composition on the east elevation. And the commission feels the project is ready for project design approval, and the applicant may move forward with preparing the Phase 2 Historic Structures and Sites report. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll just tick through these. We'll start on the elevation page. The windows on the garage being too large, we did a fairly careful study of existing windows on the house that were of this single rectangular size. And what we've done is we've matched the proportions of those windows, but we have reduced the size of them to better fit the scale of the wall. If I remember right, they came down maybe 15% or so, yeah, from the last time you saw. Garage doors on the south elevation, we've worked pretty closely with carriage house garage doors, although they are south elevation, if we could. Yeah, motor court. They will be sectional doors, and they are very confident that they can take this River of Life and the carriage door style and get those.
Z key is what you want.
Get those to work quite well as sectional doors. So they are pushed into the back side of the wall. We get that good 14 or 16 inch or so recess. I forget the exact number. And then the plaster above the doors, the just to the right here is part of the existing residence, which also has a series of repeating arched openings. We did a study of those, and those openings do have kind of a minimal amount of plaster over the openings. probably less than what we're sort of used to seeing on this style of architecture. But we did pick up on that, recognizing these doors are a little larger than the windows. Maybe if we could show them the west elevation, they can see those windows. Recognizing the doors are a little larger, we increased the plaster slightly. I think we've
I think
added about
the space
4
bar
inches.
gives you the hand.
Yeah, but the hand's not working.
Oh,
It's
It's a common problem on that laptop.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good glitch, I think, but there we go.
There you go. So those arched openings there are what we studied in terms of plaster dimensions. Rafter tails, similarly, we did a study of the rafter tails, matched the size, the overhang, how they're cut. So that's again a matching detail. The roof pitch, which we can actually see in that bottom north elevation, or sorry, west elevation again. That roof pitch occurs at a structural line in the existing building. So the steeper pitch you see beyond there is between two, stone structural walls. It's over a single volume from front to back, and that roof pitch is really over a interior kind of / exterior feeling corridor across there. So in evaluating this comment of the board last time around, we felt that a single pitched roof over the single volume was more in keeping with the existing house and how those roofs have been structured. The River of Life predominantly occurs around the existing house on larger doors, so we opted to keep it on the garage doors. And for the pedestrian door there to the right, we've matched some detailing from some other wood pedestrian doors. A photo of which I think is off to the margin of this sheet. Yeah. Down there in the lower left corner is the pedestrian door there in the middle that we'll be matching the detailing on. Auto court design, we have conceptually eliminated the lozenger shape, if we look at the site plan, and showed something more of like an oval. This does certainly need some further development with our landscape architect. If we are motioned here today to proceed to project design approval as we were last time, then we'll start getting our landscape architect involved and come back with something more detailed here. But we've acknowledged that comment by omitting the lozenge. Nothing really to comment on number 8, as it was acceptable. Number 9, looking over at the east elevation probably again and doing a study of the existing home. Single openings or collections of units that kind of form an opening into a single room predominantly happen centered on a gable roof end around the existing home. So again, we've kept what you saw last time in terms of kind of carrying the pattern of the existing home. And I will leave it there.
Does that complete your presentation?
It does, thank you.
Okay. Well, then we will open it to public comment. Is there anybody in the room that wishes to speak on this item? I don't see anybody, so
Thank
were there
you.
any written comments?
Thank you. There were no written comments received, and there are no attendees in the webinar.
Okay, thank you. So I will close public comment and open it to questions from the commission.
And Vice Chair House, before you start, if I could interrupt, I failed to mention at the beginning of this item, but this project will eventually be headed to the staff hearing officer for review of a zoning modification associated with accessory floor area maximums.
What's the modification for again?
Accessory structure floor area?
More than the size of the garage, is that?
Okay, let's see. Yeah, maximum floor area for detached covered parking and other detached accessory buildings, and maximum floor area in any single detached building. So it exceeds those standards. So they'll be
Okay.
going to the staff hearing officer.
Okay.
So if you could, the staff hearing officer will be looking for your comments for aesthetic appropriateness.
Mhm.
And then if, as part of your motion, if you want to indicate whether or not you feel this project is ready to be continued to the show, that would be great.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Commissioner Drury.
Yes, thank you. Just one thing in the description, low site wall, is that an old sandstone wall? Is it historic, perhaps?
The sandstone walls throughout the property are historic, and
Okay.
it's such a small section of it that we felt it was okay for that section to be sacrificed because everything else is being
And
retained.
is that sort of to the east of the garage and lower down, is that correct?
It currently runs along the line of the motor court where the garage is now, so it's just removing it so that the garage can actually fit in there.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. On the north elevation, what are those garage doors? They almost look like they have translucent panels in them or something.
Yes, those are glass panels.
Okay.
And working with the same company, Carriage House, we're going to work with them to basically customize these doors to look like narrow sight line steel doors.
Okay. Other questions from
Yes.
commissioners?
have-
Commissioner Lundvik.
On that elevation there, the north, the dark area above those doors, is that meant to represent a wood header?
I think is an awning. 'Cause it looks like there are awning arms coming down.
Correct, Vice Chair.
Those are awnings.
Those are awnings, yep.
Ah.
They're rather tall doors. I think they're capping out at about 11 feet. So we're trying to kind of knock down the
And-
visual height of those and get some
And,
shadow.
and why are they so high?
They have an RV that they want to be able to park inside.
That raises the question, if they need to be that high for the RV, how successful can the awnings bring down the height if they are lower than the height of the door?
Yeah, we can have them operable. Interestingly, the existing home has some operability to those awnings, and we felt like it was something that we could mimic with a
Yeah,
good.
On that
fabricator.
on that north elevation, I continue to be puzzled about the proportions of the windows above.
Is this a
The-
question?
Pardon me?
Is this a question? Because we're in questions.
We're in questions now, huh?
Yeah.
Can you phrase it as a question?
Well, no, I will, I have a question for the report writer. On the existing residence, what is the depth of the overhang?
I'm gonna guess at the moment it's about 18 inches.
So
It's been a long time since we've measured it.
So you're not matching that overhang extension with the garage?
We are. We're matching the exact roof detailing.
So, when I look at that side elevation there,
That would be a good indicator. Yeah, that's not 18 inches. Do you remember?
I don't see an 18-inch overhang.
I think it's less than that.
And I see a stubby little whatever overhang that is not gracious. I'm not sure what the size of the rafter members are on the existing house, but I would tend to think that they are more, they're lighter and more delicate and more gracious than what I see right here. That's a question that has to be answered. But I again, my question is regarding the windows. I just don't think that the windows are in character with the scale of the windows on the main house. I can be proven wrong, but I need to be shown that I'm wrong.
You have some photographs of the main house that we can see what
The-
the roof overhang is like, and
Let's go to our photo page.
there's some roof overhang. Not very big.
Yeah, Commissioner Lenvik, I appreciate your observations. As mentioned, we did carefully document the existing overhangs on this building. And this building does have a number of kind of little unique idiosyncrasies happening with it that you wouldn't normally see on buildings of this kind of same era and style. So we are matching it intentionally. I think one of the comments of the board from our very first visit was to pick up more of the character of the existing home. And so that's what we've done with this.
Show me a close-up view of the arcade that is adjoining the garage area. If you have a picture of that arcade.
Looks like that middle picture would be it.
Yeah. So you're saying that overhang there is only 18 inches, huh?
You get a little bit of shadow there. You can see that it also
Yeah.
is quite stubby.
Sure.
On the left, we can see it.
Would I look at the home, gray home, and I don't see it as a. It's a question now. I see it as something that is to a degree refined in its appearance, and I'm not sure that I get the same sense in the garage. Granted, you have copied the scale of the arched openings with the garage. Go back to that garage elevation.
South elevation.
South elevation, yeah. I don't know, it doesn't have the subtlety, the flavor that the elevation on the arcade of the main home has. I don't know. Maybe we don't need the light fixtures. I mean, there's the amount of wall on the gray home house between each arch is greater than it is here. If you go back and so that width there is probably a couple feet, and you go in the gray home house and it's probably 3 or 4 feet of wall.
Let's go back to that picture if we could.
Yeah, go back to the arcade again.
Looks pretty similar to me.
Pardon me?
Looks pretty similar to me.
Yeah, well, you could be right. There's just a subtlety there.
Could be the fact that the garage doors are physically a lot
Whatever,
larger.
yeah, there's a refinement. I mean, you look at the plan. You look at the plan. Well, it's a comment. Other people may have questions.
Other questions?
Mr. Chair, just for my edification, we had a really dark image here, and it was even darker up there, but the River of Life extends to the front door of the, yes? I mean, on the garage doors, there's the River of Life pattern. Same thing on the door to the residence, or to them.
On the existing house.
Existing. No,
As in the main entry door to the residence?
no, did I read this wrong?
Pedestrian door next to the garage.
The door next to the garage.
That has a different pattern.
Different pattern?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just a linear vertical plank kind of pattern.
Oh, so of the two of those, it's, okay,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Do you have any pictures of the existing house that could illustrate that the proportions and size of the window are, the kind of proportion you're proposing on the garage? Well, it would need to be in the context of a whole elevation.
You have a photograph
I mean, for instance, photo D, they're pretty small. Well, and there's some, there's a good view.
I would go one page down in the middle photograph. Right there, in the middle.
Middle row?
Yeah, right there.
Okay. fairly large.
Yeah.
And big light fixtures. Other questions? Then let's go into comments.
Mr. Vice Chair, I have just a comment. I understand Commissioner Lenvig's concerns. My own feeling is that, or I'm more inclined to say that one of the issues is the difference between the graphic representation and the photograph. And that the graphic representation, those doors are so dark that it changes your impression of that elevation. So I understand Commissioner Lenvig's concern, but I personally think that it might be attributable to the difference in the graphic representations of those two.
Thank you. Well, and also I noticed that the representation of the tile roof on the garage has a much more CAD look to it, whereas the tiles on the house in that same rendering look like the ones on the actual house. So that's doing it a little bit of a disservice. Other comments? Commissioner Uli?
Looking at this photograph, it would seem to me if this left-hand portion of the elevation, if you use that to inspire the garage, that building may tie in a little bit better. And also I noticed that the roof tile on the existing house is not very regular. It has a random feel to it, and I think that adds to its ease. What you've illustrated on the garage may go to your point that it may be more graphics than it is anything else. But I think you have to make the graphics look romantic if you're going to convince us that it's going to be romantic.
Yeah, can we go back to that south elevation? Because you've got all the textures in the plaster and everything, but it's just the roof look CAD-like. I would like to know more about your choice for the glass panels and the garage door down below. That just seems out of character with the whole residence and what the reason for that is.
It was touched on briefly in the project description in that two of those bays are actually going to be used as a workshop of sorts by the owner, as opposed to actually parking a car. I don't remember exactly why, but it had to be, the structure itself had to be defined as a 6-car garage. And so in terms of getting natural light into that space, we wanted to go with these glass kind of steel-like doors. You know, thinking of buildings around town similar to like maybe Meridian Studios, where you get these very large kind of glass elements that bring a lot of light into a space.
Well, my comment on those doors is I just don't feel that they're really in character with the house, and in terms of getting natural light in there, well, and I know it's a hardship that it's a north-facing elevation, so you have even less natural light coming in, but that something that was more of a wood panel door but had lights in the upper part of it, especially if the doors are as tall as they are, it would seem like you could get a lot of useful light in there. And if it's a workshop, it's going to have electric lights as well anyway, which they'd probably turn on regardless of having all of this, because being north elevation, it's not always going to be very bright, and especially with the awnings on it. And I forget how close the oak trees are, but so I don't know how others feel about those doors.
Well, I don't have a problem with them. I probably don't have a problem with the project as it is. It's, as Mr. Jordan says, it's probably, we're looking at it wrong. And being a highly trained professional architect, I probably should see all the good in this, not the bad.
I would second that.
My only comment is, and again, it's going to fall apart. Go to the site plan or the plan of the building. Go into the building closer.
Floor plan.
Yeah, the floor plan, I guess it is. I look at the right there. Back, I look at the on each side of the entry drive to the garage in the upper level, huge boulders. And I said to myself, oh gosh, this is a refined building. The home is a refined building, and you don't put boulders in front of it like that. But then I look at the real elevations of one side, and the stone is whatever. So my arguments fall apart. But I don't have a problem with what's being presented here.
So why bring them up?
Yeah, well, it took Mr. Jordan to correct me. This is wrong.
May I speak to that refinement comment? Because that's come up a couple times. The refinement for the design of this building originally, the architect was really trying to go with rustic lodge versus the true refined Spanish colonial. So I think that that's where some of the, like the rock walls everywhere and those boulders, we're not putting new boulders. Those are boulders that are already out there. I think that that's kind of a concept that he was really striving for, and we're just trying to mimic more than make something new happen.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury?
Yes, speaking of rock walls, so the one that's going to be removed, or a portion of it, would you be saving those? Are they cut, or are they just stacked?
They're just stacked. Those are not cut stone.
So there's nothing,
And-
there's
and
no
we've-
real structural integrity to them, except the fact that they're placed one on top of the other?
Yeah, some of those walls, I'm surprised are still standing.
Okay.
But we have been saving all stone that has
Good,
been
good.
excavated from the site improvements already underway. There are some very large rocks to be used.
Oh, sure.
There's a very large existing rock just kind of page down, and that's, to Sarah's point, that's what's kind of driving that particular part of the concept.
And then my other comment would be that I agree with Commissioner Howes, or Chair Howes, that those doors down below seem to be really incongruous. They don't fit with anything I can imagine. I think the idea of having lights across the top third, let's say, of those garage doors would be a more acceptable idea.
Other
Miss-
comments on that?
Well, again, to speak in the applicant's defense on those doors, he's trying to make them, as I understand it, look like the steel, doors that are in the house, thin steel with glass in them. He's not, I don't believe the intent is a contemporary glass lit door, but as a, try to make it look like it was traditionally built.
But is it gracious?
Well, and that's why I'm backing off the graciousness now. I think that this garage that we see from the motor court is what's important, and I think that it's going to be okay.
Okay, so most people are accepting of garage doors then, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
One more comment.
Yes, please.
Since the majority of the openings on the existing house are wood, I would encourage the openings to be wood and not steel.
I didn't pick up on that. So the windows in this building are wood or steel?
They are a mix.
Yep.
They're mixed. There's a million different types of windows on
I
this
mean,
home,
in the
but
garage, are they all steel, or the windows wood and
The windows up above, I believe, are now wood.
Okay.
Yeah.
In those three above the garage doors?
And there's
Three
one
above the
on the
garage.
east elevation, is that also wood? Okay, all right.
Again, we didn't find many windows of that particular size that were actually steel. But there is, to Sarah's point, there are a number of steel units around the home.
So then it just must be a graphics thing because they look like steel windows.
Yeah. Okay, well, this is here for concept review, so there's no motion other than to continue it. But we do need a motion for acceptance of the Phase 2 Historic Structures and Sites report. Would somebody like to make?
I'd make a motion to accept the structures report.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Woolley, second by Jordan. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start the roll call vote. Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner House,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
and Commissioner Manuel.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Then I make a motion to continue the matter with our comments indefinitely.
And what would those comments be?
I'm sure our secretary has eagerly typed them out.
Well, I don't know. It didn't seem like we had any, very specific ones, and people were largely accepting of all the different elements that are presented, so it was pretty much as presented.
Then I would definitely include my comment about wood windows.
Okay. The windows should be wood, and we're otherwise accepting of all the design elements as presented.
Yes.
I would second Commissioner Uli's motion.
And Vice Chair House, if, would you like to continue this to the staff hearing officer, or did you want to see it back here?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
So
Continue to
the
whatever
staff
its next
hearing
step is.
Yeah. And, yeah, we don't have any aesthetic concerns relative to the modification request.
We need to vote on the motion.
Yes, we do. Keep your pants on.
I don't want you to go wandering off.
No. I think I've kind of gotten in the rhythm again. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Vice Chair Howes,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvick,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, anything else we need to do, or we got it?
That's the last item, so you can just adjourn the meeting.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.